Welcome to Coastal Conversation, episode 3 in season 2. Thanks for tuning in today. We have a great show for you, and we just want to, again, express our appreciation for you to listen every week. We get really a lot of comments at church and throughout the week of people that have listened and that have gained more information, knowledge, and just been inspired about what we're talking about here on Coastal Conversation. So thank you again for listening every week. Well, this year so far, 2025, has been really impactful here at Coastal Church. If you're not a part of Coastal Church, if you're just one of our friends that listens, I would really encourage you to go on our website and make sure you're watching all of our services back. You can do that on YouTube or through our website. There has just been a special spirit, a special anointing on the services in 2025. So I would encourage you, even if you don't attend church, Coastal Church on a regular basis, to visit our website, visit our YouTube channel, and re-watch some of those services. It's just been really good. And this year, Pastor Chad has given us this theme of the year. And really, it's a theme that's going to go with us and continue with us for years to come. And that theme is called Greater. And so with that, we've got a lot of cool events coming up at Coastal Church. And I just want to highlight some of those before we get into really what Greater is and what we have coming up on January the 26th, which is one of our big days here at Coastal. Coming up soon, we have Marriage Night on February the 7th. So if you're listening to this in real time, Marriage Night is coming February the 7th, 2025. Doctors Les and Leslie Parrott are going to be our guests that evening. It's going to be very good. We have dinner, catered dinner, childcare provided with your registration. And you also are going to have an opportunity to take a marriage evaluation. So before you even come, you're going to get a free link to a marriage evaluation that has been put out there by Doctors Parrott. And it will give you so much insight. So you get this really thick, I meant to bring mine to the podcast today to show you if you're watching on YouTube. You get this really thick report when you're done about all the ways that you and your husband are compatible, the things you can work on. Then it gives you this playbook that you can take with you on how to enhance your conversations, think about the other person, know more about their love languages, all of those things. So I know that we want to invest and make things greater this year, 2025. That's our theme. So why not make one of those things that are greater our marriage? And so I want to encourage you, invest in that, invest in your marriage, and come to Marriage Night on February the 7th. Also, we have groups coming up, our winter spring semester here at Coastal, which groups are where you really enjoy community. It's where you really dig into God's word on some of them. And it's really where you meet people and grow in your relationship with Jesus. We say this all the time, that you cannot do this thing called Christianity, following Jesus, by yourself. You need to be in community. Well, we have various communities because we know that everyone's different. So we have all kinds of groups. We have hangout groups, activity groups, dinner club, lunch groups, book clubs, Bible studies, activities. I know Sean is over here, and he's our producer for one of our producers for the podcast. He does pickleball. And I think, are you going to do a pickleball group or with pickleball people? Maybe, who knows? So, but we have all kinds of groups. So what I encourage you to do is find your group when those come live. But before that, if you want to lead a group, we're still taking people. If you're listening to this in live time, we're still taking leaders to lead a live group. So you can go on our website and sign up to lead a group today. And then, as always, if you want to stay up to date on everything happening at Coastal Church, let me encourage you to visit our website and make sure that you have subscribed to our weekly Current. Our Current is our weekly newsletter that goes out every Friday. And Marissa puts a lot of work into what goes in that Current. There's a lot of information that's in there for you. There's videos, updates, all kinds of things you can sign up for. So if you miss it on Sunday, I promise it'll be in the Current. But what we're going to do is we're going to add a few things to the Current this year. We're going to add missionary updates for you for our Greater initiative. We're going to have updates on Greater, like where are we in our giving? Where are we we tracking? How are we doing with our giving to greater? So you don't want to miss that. Make sure you visit our website and subscribe to the current newsletter. Well, today's guest is going to be very special. I want to introduce you to Kevin Weaver. Mr. Kevin, excuse me. He serves as the president and CEO and co-founder of The Warrior's Journey. He is a U.S. Air Force veteran. So leveraging his 30 years of pastoral leadership, he is utilizing his skills to develop and advance the vision of The Warrior's Journey to help veterans and their families. And as you know, The Warrior's Journey is one of the big things we're giving to this year in greater. So I want you to lean into this conversation as we learn more about the Warrior's Journey, what they're doing to serve our veterans, our American veterans that need so much support and help. We are excited about being able to give to this. I want to encourage you to make sure you have your magazine out and maybe take some notes in this so that you know how to pray for the Warrior's Journey. But we're really excited about this conversation today. So help me welcome to Coastal Conversations today, Mr. Weaver. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Weaver, for being here today. We are so honored that you have agreed to join us via Zoom. This is our first Zoom to do on our podcast.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm happy to be a part of this and maybe to be a groundbreaking experience here. And thank you for having me. And please just call me Kevin.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Will do. All right. Well, we'll get started really quickly because I want to honor your time. But first, will you tell our people that listen to Coastal Conversations a little bit about the founding of the Warrior's Journey? I know you are one of the co-founders of this. So how did this all get started?
Yeah, so you may be aware of Network 21.1. It's a global movement that used the internet and really technology. It's using 21st century technology to preach the first century gospel for evangelism. And Dr. Mark Flattery, who just happens to be the son of George Flattery, who founded ICI/Global University, as well as Network 21.1. I pastored for 34 years and was always involved with military ministry. I actively served in the early days of my life, and then my first pastorate was to go back to the Republic of Panama right after the invasion and actually pastor American military personnel there. And then we've always had, through our military experience, or through my pastoral experience, we've always had a military emphasis, much like Coastal Church, which, by the way, big shout out to the whole congregation. I just want to say thanks because we need churches desperately. So thankful for the fact that you honor the veterans and you see the unique needs and you've taken aspects to say, hey, we want to identify with those and make sure that our veterans know that we love them, and that means so much. So just big shout out to you there in the pre-clear there.
Thank you.
So you bet. Thank you. So for us, coming back to network, and one of the things that Mark Flattery said, hey, and listen, because you're military, I have this heart to create an initiative within what we're doing on a world scale to really hit our U.S. service members, our warriors, as well as veterans and their families. And I said, Mark, that's great. I'm in. Let's do that. That's great. So I went and actually became a missionary. I went and raised my funds, and it goes, oh, by the way, I can't pay you. You got to come and work full time, but I can't pay you. But we're going to give you mission status, which is great. So I did that through HWM and went through all that stuff, which is a lot. And
it really is.
The vetting. And so we jumped through all those hoops, later in life, for the second time, because we actually did mission with missions before. The first time. So it's like, and I knew what to expect. And so, but it was great. God provided. And here we are, we get in there. So we begin to work on this initiative along with some other projects. And it wasn't very long before this initiative exploded into a project, which exploded into its own entity. And so 2020, Dr. Flattery came to me and said, look, we're cutting you loose. We're going to set you free, and because you need full attention on this, because this thing is, here we are, and here's the Warrior's Journey. It's just outgrowing and it's taking on a new shape. And it wasn't just doing evangelism through digital means, but we were actually doing service-related, what we call veteran service organizational related services, programs, resources. We had written many things. God just began to open doors. We became a government contractor. We were doing contracts with the Department of Defense, doing resiliency training with a spiritual emphasis, which it was just incredible. We didn't compromise at all on our belief that the gospel was the answer for healing invisible wounds, because that's really our focus, is healing invisible wounds. So this all came about through that way, and here we are now today. And if you were to tell me even 3 or 4 years ago we'd be sitting where we are today, I would think there's no way that could happen. But nothing's impossible for
That's
God.
right. And it just shows that when we step out and we do what God has laid on our heart, He expands it. And it
Yes.
shows the need that's out there as well. You know,
Yes.
you're filling that need, you're filling that gap that is needed for our veterans to be
Yes.
ministered to. And that there's a lot of veterans organizations out there and help things out there that are on the quote secular side of things, but that you guys provide that spiritual element, that point to Jesus. That's what changes things.
Exactly.
That's what makes the
exactly
difference.
right.
That's exciting.
Which we knew that going in, but
Yeah.
how do you communicate in a way that
You
it's
can't.
accepted by, right? You know, it's
Yeah.
we just wait for those divine appointments, and God has come through on that over and above much more than we could ever think, ask, or imagine. You know,
That's
as
great.
He's fulfilled His word through that.
Well, we know broadly what the Warriors Journey helps veterans, that they help veterans. Like broadly, you help veterans. But talk to our listeners specifically about all the support. Like, what are some of the specific things that you guys do to provide help to veterans?
Yeah, great question, and thank you for that, because it is very broad but yet focused. So broad in the sense that we feel like we take this broad approach that, as Jesus did, met physical needs, met emotional needs. He met even psychological needs, right, in His ministry, right? He comforted, He brought physical healing and so on. But ultimately to bring a person to a place where their heart could be restored. You know, when we all know the passage in Luke where He stands up, Luke chapter 4, and He says, hey, you know, I'm reading from the scroll of Isaiah, you know, I've come to heal the brokenhearted, to establish back, you know, give sight to the blind, so on, to present the acceptable, you know, year of the Lord. You know, this is the time where God's favor is upon us. And of course I'm paraphrasing, but he was quoting directly from Isaiah. And so we take that mantra and we say that he has that for all people, including warriors. And there are unique challenges that serving in the military bring that most people really don't understand. And those challenges create physical challenges, emotional challenges, which the things that are physical are easy to see. You know, we see like things like Wounded Warrior Project, which, by the way, little side note, there are over 42,000 service organizations, veteran service organizations in America.
Wow.
Many of them are doing good things. Many of them aren't. You know, they're playing off the emotional side, and they're not legitimate, right? They're not really doing a whole lot. But what we saw a gap was in all of those services, we didn't see any one organization focusing on the soul care of our warriors and those who serve in the military, maybe that didn't see combat, but still affected by the fact that they were supporting all these things for one of the longest wars in our history, right? So we felt like, hey, the VA says you have to manage what they entitle invisible wounds PTSD. Everything comes under the umbrella of PTSD. We knew there was more. So long story short, we had a few divine appointments. In fact, if I have a chance to tell that story, we'll see how that fits it. But it's amazing. It's been a series of divine appointments where we're looking back at what God has done in the Warrior's Journey, and there's no way that we could orchestrate this. Even in my own personal life, God has orchestrated everything, the military service that I served, the people that I met, the pastoral engagements that I had for 34 years. And He has now taken all of those relationships and culminated them for such a time as this to open the doors for us to do what we're seeing happen. And it's hard not to get emotional. About this, but it's so humbling because, you know, God, you know, I'm just a normal Joe, right? I'm no one special, you know. No, the people that work on our team were just normal people, but He has elevated the experiences to a place where now we're having this impact that only God could take credit for. And that's so exciting to feel like you get to participate in something that's so much bigger than ourselves.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So to answer your question, so going back, so what we felt like was to really focus on those invisible wounds. And so we did research. We actually, through a relationship that I had, when I went back to Panama, my very first pastorate, working as a missionary, pastoring this military community, there was a young captain there. His his second assignment as a chaplain. He was actually a combat engineer prior to that, became a captain. Well, lo and behold, now he's the deputy chief of chaplains, a one-star general at the Pentagon. And we rekindled our relationship. I said, hey, I got this idea. He said, whatever you need. Through that relationship, we were able to do a branch-wide survey that was an empirical study on what we felt were the unique challenges of military life. And the Harvard School of Business assimilated all the data for us. It became an empirical study. We gave that back to the DoD, didn't charge them a penny for it, just said, hey, this is what we found. This is what we're going to. And they said, can we have that? Yes. Well, how much do you want? Nothing. And whatever you want, this is basically their response to us. Hey, this is great. We want to work with you. And so from that point on, we became a legitimate military contractor, even though we didn't even know what we were doing yet,
Awesome.
But they felt like, well, hey, the fact that you're focusing on these needs. And so what we found was post-traumatic stress in severity, we identified 12 issues, everything ranging from moral injury to identity issues, separation and reintegration, family brokenness, isolation was the number one issue. Post-traumatic stress was number 10 out of 12. It was not the top issue. And so we went to work and we developed over 5,000 written articles and video testimonies before we even launched publicly, put them on a website that was interactive so that we can engage with military members. So this is who we serve, military active duty members, veterans, all the way back to World War II, whatever veteran experience you had, and your families. We want to be there to meet all these needs, but eventually, how do we address the invisible wound that you might have that you've never had an opportunity to address? How do we do that? We do it warriors helping warriors. So we get a warrior who knows Jesus, a warrior who has a faith story, a warrior who is served. We get them in touch with someone who hasn't had that opportunity to process and get them in touch and you can't create a relationship, but you can create an environment for trust and safety, right?
Yes.
So you've seen people at the restaurant that wear I'm a Vietnam vet or I'm a Marine, and the other guy, they say, "Oh, brother," it's like, "Oh, you guys know each other?" Nope, never met, but we're brothers because we had that similar experience. And so they get each other. They know they do. And so what happens is they become very vulnerable. And this was something that I realized through many conversations with my own nephew, who's a Marine. I was an Air Force combat vet. So, I was the only veteran in my family that he trusted. So when he came back from Fallujah in 2004, he was one of 7 individuals who survived from his company, carried a lot of survivor guilt, a lot of questions, and he was really struggling. But we would go out and talk. And here I was, a pastor, right? So my pastoral inclination was, how do I fix this, right? What do I need to give him? How do I, but I was at a loss. I just listened. And God was like, don't say a word, be quiet, just listen and then pray. Let him throw up on the table, and I will use that. And it was really awesome to watch God cathartically change his heart. He went back in 2006 for a 15-month deployment as a Marine sniper, came back even with more questions. And again, that process began again. And through that, I realized he didn't really need to see a psychiatrist. He didn't need drugs. He didn't need antidepressants, which is what the VA does. They have one mantra, right? And he wasn't suicidal, but he was wondering what life was about, right? Trying to even reconnect with his own faith,
right?
And just allowing him to process. So that's what we said, if we can create that, and that's what we've done, Jennifer. So what we've done is we've created an army of volunteer warriors that we do intense training to train them not to be counselors, but to be battle buddies, focusing on 4 things. Everyone wants to be loved. Everyone wants to belong to a community. They want to be part of something. Everyone needs mission and purpose, and everyone wants to be valued. Wow. That's what Jesus addressed in that passage. He said, I've come to heal the brokenhearted, right? To give sight to the blind. Those were the 4 things that he addressed were in those issues. And now I've come to culminate. I'm now bringing this to fruition. So we focus on that truth. Yeah. And we found that it works. So put that in context to how that's actually practically applied. We have now had over 3,200 direct suicide interventions with individuals who have no idea who Jesus was, contact us and say, hey, I'm going to take my life unless you can tell me why I shouldn't. Wow. And we intervene in that crisis moment. We call that our intervention side, right? We intervene, and we do that with a warrior to warrior. We triage, we treat, we customize a plan, and through all of that, we give an opportunity to have them not only be introduced to what it means to have a relationship with Christ, but even maybe equally importantly, to find friendship and a sense of healing. And it's just been fun to watch.
That is incredible.
By the way, in that process, we have only lost one individual out of that whole process. Wow. So we have a 99.9% success rate in this world of suicide prevention. The VA, their success rate is 18%.
Yeah.
And so needless to say, we have their attention and they're asking us questions. And now we partner with them in community outreach, so pretty neat stuff.
That
it's
really
been amazing.
Is. Wow. What a God-centered just community that you are creating there, and just an organization that is for the brokenhearted to help them. That is incredible. Man, that is a God dream that has just impacted.
And to their specific needs, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
That is the thing. And I
God
love
cares
that
enough
it's
about
warrior to warrior. That's what I really like about this, because no one understands them except someone who's been where they've been. And that makes them, listen even more intently to what they're saying. And because they know they've been where they've been. Man, that is just a God dream. That is incredible. 30, what did you say? 3,200?
Over 3,200. It's been 3,269 individuals. Now, and I'll give you one other stat two other stats. One that's pretty amazing. So when we started in 2016 is when we publicly launched, October 2016. Fast forward to August 21st, 2021. That was the day we pulled out of Afghanistan. At that moment, we had 289 direct interventions, 289, which we thought we were really making a dent, right? We thought that was a lot. Well, then go from 2021 to 2020, end of 24, that now exceeded 3,200.
What do you attribute the increase to?
The day we pulled out of Afghanistan.
Really?
Was a gut punch to our community that no one wants to talk about. I own boys who serve. My son, who's a Green Beret, he was an Army Ranger prior to that. He deployed 4 different times to Afghanistan, and he called me that very day in tears. Dad, I don't understand. I mean, could this really be? I felt like, we gave so much to this, and they believed in the cause. We were doing some good things there. Not to say that we shouldn't have pulled back and pulled out. Everybody believed that we should be reducing, right? But it was the way it happened. And then all of a sudden, all the work for 20 years, it was all then lost, in their minds. They're having this perception that everything was lost. And so it was for nothing. You said, I lost friends there, people that I knew that gave their lives. And so it was such a devastating thing that the increase in suicides just was accentuated. And there was lots of other complex issues. Now the issue is transitioning, so many guys that have transitioned out of the military after 15, 17, 20, 30 years, trying to get back into civilian life, even getting back into a church, right? A church experience. Community. And it just seems so foreign, like, oh, I don't feel like I fit, right? And we're like, yes, you do. Let's talk about what you have to offer, because, there is no correlation. Well, there is. And so we help them with that. Awesome. We help guys find work. We help guys transition into new housing. We meet those kinds of physical needs. Whatever that plan looks like for them, we have a team that is willing to come alongside and meet those needs at no cost to them, to include VA benefits. We have people who are licensed veteran service officers for the VA right here in our office, and we help them find their benefits, but we don't charge them. It's free. Yeah. And we give them excellent service, which gives us the opportunity then to talk about their spiritual life, which is
that
fantastic.
Leads me to a great question. Is there a specific veteran story that stands out to you as a shining example of what the impact the Warrior's Journey makes?
Yeah, I can give you. Is it okay to tell a quick story?
Yeah, that's what.
Maybe that would accentuate this. Yeah. So this was a couple of years ago, Sunday evening. My wife and I we're kind of getting ready for the week, and I happened to be home that weekend. I do a lot of traveling, but that weekend I was home, and we have a proprietary software system in our the way we onboard people, whether it's through our website or through text. We're 24/7, right? We have a crisis hotline kind of thing. And so I was on call that weekend. It was my turn to kind of watch the ticker, and we had several things that came through. But this one was an intervention. So it said, "Hey, I'm married to a Green Beret, 10th Special Forces Group, Fort Carson. My husband, who is the command sergeant major." Which means he was the highest ranking enlisted member of that group, which is a big deal. He served basically was the right hand to the commander of that group. And so very high ranking guy. He just walked into our bedroom. He's being dismissed. He's being medically discharged because his body was so broken, and he's getting ready to go back into civilian life. And he's really struggling with what he's going to do. And he just told me, he said, "I feel like it would be better if I took my life, because then I would have the death benefit that the military gives if I die while on duty, which is $500,000. He said, "That's going to go to you." He goes, "I think that's the noble thing to do. I'm worth more dead than I'm alive." And he walked out of the room, and she freaks out. She's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." And so she's like, suicidal veteran. She looks up, finds our site, contacts our number, and she says, "Here's what just happened. Can you help me?" And we're like, "Yes, we can." What's going on? And she explained it. I said, "Hey, here's my number. My wife's here with me. We always try to be very careful with that gender, engagement, right? My wife's right here with me. We would love to talk to you as a couple." She called, we talk, and she's like, "Oh, good. I have the perfect warrior connector." The 7th group commander was one of our warrior connectors, and he was active duty still. And I'm like, "I'm going to get him connected to Colonel Colleton, and this is going to be great. This is going to be perfect. I said, "We're going to take care of this." I mean, we have a lot of things we can actually practically do to serve him, but also to encourage him to know that there's more. This is not the answer, right? And the devil gets into the minds of people, thinking that they're doing something very noble when it's such a dark, evil path. So I said, "I want to get." So "Oh, hey, he just walked in the room. You can talk to him." I'm like, no.
Oh gosh.
And so he's like, who's this? Right. And I'm like, "Hey, Paul, how do you know my name?" And I'm like, "Well, your wife told me." "Well, why did you call?" I said, "Well, I didn't. Your wife called us because here's what's happened. You kind of freaked her out. Isn't this what took place earlier today?" Yeah, that's exactly what I said. I said, "Well, we're an organization that helps walk people through to find answers, thinking that maybe there aren't any. We really believe we can help you." Okay. "Were you ever in the military?" "Well, yeah, I was, Paul." "Yeah, so you're a veteran?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he's like, "Well, what branch of the service did you serve in?" And I'm like, "Here we go. This is what happened." That's why I didn't really want to talk to him, because I want to get him connected to someone he felt he could trust, right? Another Green Beret. I'm an Air Force guy.
Yes.
Which is like, and if you know anything about the military, and people who are listening to this, you're laughing. All the veterans right now who are listening to this are laughing right now because they know what's coming, right? So, and the only saving grace that I had, thank the Lord, is my son is now a Green Beret. Was an Army Ranger, is now a Green Beret. So I said, "Paul, before I answer the question about where I served, I want you to know that my son is an ODA commander. He's a Green Beret. He's a commander, has a combat team." "Oh, what group is he in?" Told me. I had him. That was my connection, right? And so through that trusted little niblet, I was able to convince him to continue to talk. We got him involved in a couple of our programs. It was 6 weeks later, he gave his heart to Jesus. And radically changed his life. And today he is thriving as an entrepreneurial. He started a business. We were able to help him with that and his family. And he is now one of our best connectors. And it just around. And his example of that life is it's just a microcosm of what happens every day here at the Warrior's Journey. It's just one example. One little caveat on that story that I think is pretty funny. So about 4 months later, as we were getting into knowing him better, and he just like, "This is amazing," and now he's kind of like part of the family, right?
He's in.
He said, "Hey, by the way, you never did tell me which branch of the service you served," and I'm like, "Yeah," and he goes, "You were Air Force, weren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, I knew it. He said, I said, "But aren't you glad I didn't say that? Because if I told you that, what would you have done?" And he said, "I would have hung up on you, and I would have never wanted to talk to you again."
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, I get it." And so we're very careful to take the nuances of cultural context and really put positions where what we call our warrior clients, a potential believers, right? The
That's right.
pre-Christians that,
Yeah.
but to draw them into a place where they have no excuse but to talk to that guy that says, they can't say, well, you don't know. Well, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And so
What a
because of that,
difference. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So does it make sense?
it
So
does.
we feel like we found that secret sauce, and not to be sacrilegious in any way, but the answer is Jesus.
That's right.
He ultimately, but we get to be Jesus
Mhm.
to them,
Yeah.
prior to them experiencing that
And it
for
just
themselves.
accentuates how many things had to go right for that gentleman in
Mhm,
that moment. The fact that A, his wife found your number, B, that
mhm,
you answered the phone, C, that your
mhm,
son is a Green Beret, like
mhm,
all the things that had to happen for this one, and that God orchestrates because he cares
yes.
to enough to orchestrate all those little details in our life, that he cares about the little things enough to say, your son is a Green Beret, so this is a perfect person for to call. It's
Before
just
we knew
so
it.
before we knew. It's just so
Yes.
cool. Well,
And it's emotional. I mean,
yeah,
you
I
saying that,
know.
I'm trying not to cry here because it's like, God,
Just
thank you.
the steps of
You,
the righteous. We say it in our
yes.
podcast all the time. It's like every story we hear. The
Yeah.
steps of the righteous are ordered of the Lord. And I like to say the steps and the stops of the
Yeah.
righteous are ordered of the Lord. And he delights in our way. I mean, what a
Yes.
delight it must have given to God to know, oh, this wife's about to call and this man's world is about to be rocked because the
Yes.
steps and the stops of the righteous are ordered of the Lord.
Isn't
Well,
that great?
some of the ways that Coastal members will be giving, they'll be
Mhm.
giving their money. What ways will this impact the Warriors' journey? What ways will this are there specific initiatives that you
Mhm.
guys are planning towards or wanting to expand into, and that this giving will help you to do that?
Yes. So I would say three major initiatives. One, we're always developing and making our resources better. We have now, for instance, here's just an example.
Yeah.
In fact, I wasn't even prepared. I should have been more
No,
prepared for the
you're
podcast.
perfect.
But this is called Frog Basics. So we took our research and we created a thing called the Warriors Challenge, which is a 12-week Bible study in and around those issues,
That's
going
great.
back to God's word. How's that fit in? Well, we found that in the special operations world, like Navy SEALs, for instance, well, they would look at that and go, oh, yeah, some of that applies, but we weren't really speaking their cultural language within the framework of the military.
Mhm.
So we had, again, too long to tell, but an amazing series of divine appointments to get us before Navy SEAL commanders, which, by the way, that's never happened with any other organization outside the Navy SEAL Foundation. We're the only organization that they've invited in to actually
Wow.
address these issues. And so we thought, well, hey, we would take what we have generally and make a different version of that and put it into the SEAL language, which was what this is represented to do.
Mm.
So we're doing that on an ongoing scale with all these other different areas. And it takes about $30,000 to $60,000 per project to
Yes.
create something like this.
Mhm.
And so a portion of what we goes into that ongoing kitty to do that. So
Mhm.
that's one initiative. Second initiative is what we do by way of suicide prevention. To get someone from a suicidal ideation, and there's variations to that. So it's not always, hey, I'm calling and I'm going to do it right now. Like with
Mhm.
Paul, when that story I told you, he wasn't going to do that day, but he was in the midst of, he was thinking about
He was
it.
processing. Yeah.
And he was seriously considering, setting a date and when that was going to happen. Right. And which is so sad. But then we've had other, times where, hey, I've got the gun I got it in my hand and it's going to happen unless
That's
you tell
right.
me why. We've had those kinds of calls too. Well, every variation to that, it takes about, on average, it takes about $2,700 to move a person from that issue to a place of complete healing and hope. An average is about 18 months to get them from that, almost like a cycle, right? Because we
Mhm.
go through a series of programs, and again, we customize that to their need. We don't just have a cookie cutter program. We bring them through that. Sometimes there's family, engagements that we
Yeah.
take in consideration. So there's a huge portion of that will go to our suicide prevention initiative, which is to save a life, right, physically, but
Mhm.
then to change a life for eternity.
Yeah.
It's focused on two things. We can save a life all day long, but if they don't know Jesus, guess what? It's not going to matter in the
Right.
end, because eternally we still haven't helped them. So we are very committed to getting them physically safe, and then getting them to a place where they can be introduced to a relationship with Christ. So that's a really big, huge initiative for us. Third and final initiative that we're focusing on is what we found is we have a resiliency center in Germany. It's a 10,000 square foot facility with 16 staff members. We have a coffee bar. It's unbelievable. It's a whole nother God story. That's probably a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
But we've been open now for 5 years. We now average 250 to 300 active service members that go through that facility every single day. In fact, about 40% of our suicide prevention initiative happens at that one location.
Wow.
Because of the face-to-face engagement.
Yeah.
So what we found is we want to create, and we just opened another center in Japan. We have our headquarters center here in Missouri. We have one in Wichita, and we want to open 20 new centers in the next 7 years. But on average, those cost anywhere from $300,000 to $400,000 per center, right, to get those going. So we're saving money, and so there'll be a portion of that that's a third initiative. So all of that will go, and right now about 88% of a dollar goes directly back to our programs.
Wow.
So that's our ratio right now. We have some administrative costs and some fundraising costs, which is the hardest one for me. I hate to spend money on fundraising, but sometimes you have to do a little bit of that to to develop materials or branding and that kind of thing. So, but we're really in the scheme of things, in comparison to other veteran service organizations, most of them average in the 40 to 60 range when it comes to
a lot
program.
of nonprofits do.
Right. So 90% is our goal, and we've always been between 84 and 90. We never hit 90, but we're right now. Last year it was 87%.
Yeah, that's great.
87 last year. We're at 88 right now for this new year so far. So yeah, we're good. So hopefully that would encourage anyone who's considering making that investment back into the life of a veteran. We would tell you that, we're not the only entity that does this. But I would say from a faith perspective,
the best.
we're a good investment,
That's
because
right.
we're seeing, we've had now over 53,000 gospel conversations. We've had over 20,000 case management engagements where we know that, and 92% of those have made decisions for Christ. So it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and I think what better way to thank our veterans than provide this opportunity for them, provide this place for them where they can go. I know every time we see one of our veterans with one of those hats that you mentioned on out, Chad and I, we always pay for their lunch or pay for their meal, especially if we see them like in an airport. I think that's just a small token. But what more? Think about how farther our dollar could go by investing in the warrior's journey, and how many more people and lives can be impacted and thanked for their service. That warrior has to feel the appreciation that somebody invested to make this organization happen, that literally saved your life, not only physically, but spiritually. What a great, just God investment I think that we can make.
And we play that back, by the way, just to let you know, that when people say, well, how can you do all this and not charge money? And how don't we? No, it's all, you raised your right hand, you signed a blank check. You were willing to pay a price up to including your life.
Yeah.
No, now it's our turn to give back. And by the way, it's the faithful support of churches, individuals who love Jesus, who make this happen. So thank the Lord that he loves you enough and we're just honored to be the conduit, for us, we've got the fun job, we get to actually minister to them. So thank you. We couldn't do it without partners like Coastal. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Kevin. And thanks for being here on Coastal Conversations today. Now we have one fun last question that we sprung on you, but what is one of your favorite things? We ask every guest on Coastal Conversation, what's one of your favorite things that needs to be our favorite thing, needs to be on our radar? It can be a book, a podcast, a TV show, a hobby, a food, whatever is your favorite thing that you want to share with us today.
So I'm going to talk about a hobby. Okay. So I think it should be everybody's favorite thing. And this is probably going to age me. I'm now in that stage where I guess this makes me old.
Okay.
Right?
Tell me.
So my wife and I, during COVID, we decided that, we'd like to travel and enjoy each other, but we thought, you know what? We're going to buy an RV. We never done that before.
Okay.
And we're going to give this a try. And so we bought an RV, and I'm telling you, Jennifer, We are hooked, line and sinker. We want to get out. We've now traveled over 20,000 miles since 2020, seeing America. And we take little snippets, like, a weekend here, a few days here, a few days there. We don't get a chance to take long periods of time off, but when we can. She's an educator. She works in the public school system.
Okay.
And so she's pretty, summertime is the only time she gets off. So we just try to take advantage. I'm telling you, it is amazing. And it's a God experience to get out in the wilderness and just enjoy creation. And so I think everybody should try it.
Everybody should get an RV.
Or at least try it. Rent one. See how it fits. Yeah.
That is awesome. You said it dates you. I have a new hobby that definitely dates me. So I'm learning about birds and birding. Nice. Do you look at birds when you RV?
We do. I love that.
You do?
We even have little bird things that we hang up and see what we can draw. It's like, isn't that weird? It's like,
so that's my new hobby.
Yeah, we're getting to that point. We're getting to that stage where just like my grandparents used to do. It's like, okay, I get it now. What I used to laugh at, I do.
I know they were onto something. Well, thank you so much, Kevin, for being on our podcast today. We are so honored that you took this time to explain to us all about the Warrior's Journey. You're going to be with us on Giveaway Sunday here at Coastal Church. Grateful. So you're going to be in the audience. We're going to make sure all of our veterans know that you're going to be here so that they can introduce themselves and meet you. So I just think it's going to be an exciting Sunday. So thanks again for being here today.
We really look forward to being with you, and thank you. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for tuning in today. We hope to see you this Sunday at Coastal Church, and make sure that you listen and subscribe and share this episode with a veteran that you may know so that they can get acquainted with the Warrior's Journey. We'll see you right back here next week. Thank you for listening to this week's Coastal Conversations podcast. All of today's references will be found in the show notes. Also, if you enjoyed listening, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. We'll see you at Coastal this Sunday as we pick the conversation up from here.